Okay, maybe it's not so bad.
2 seconds later.
Okay, let's talk about Project Songbird, because this game has all the right ideas, but rarely the confidence to make them its own. This is one of those indies that almost works, but it never quite comes together in a satisfying way. It's ambitious, no doubt, it's got some really interesting ideas, and on the surface, it looks like a strong narrative-driven horror. But the more you play it, the more it starts to feel like a patchwork of other, better games. You can see the influences almost immediately. There are clear echoes of PT, Firewatch, Gone Home, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and even Doctor Who's Weeping Angels in places. And that's not a bad thing on its own. Those are all great reference points to use as a springboard to do something original. The problem is, Songbird never really moves beyond these references. Instead of feeling inspired, it often feels like it's leaning on those ideas, and because of that, it struggles to establish its own identity. Now, the core idea and a story that encapsulates this one is actually quite strong. You play as Dakota, a struggling musician dealing with creative block and past trauma, who retreats to a cabin in the woods to try and finish a new album. It's a great setup, and early on the game leans into that slower, more introspective tone, with lots of exploration, small interactions, and moments tied to Dakota's music. That part works well, especially when it comes to the environmental storytelling, or some of the mechanics that include recording music. The issue though comes when the game tries to merge that with horror. Now, nighttime sections shift things into a much more surreal space, with physical manifestations of Dakota's trauma showing up. It's a good idea, but it never quite clicks in a satisfying way. It feels like two different games awkwardly stitched together. The emotional side and the horror side never fully sync up. And then there's the combat. Now, you get an axe early on, which makes sense because you're chopping wood, and later a revolver and an unlockable hunting rifle, all of which can be upgraded, but it doesn't really fit with Dakota's journey. This is a story about a musician dealing with grief, and suddenly you're crafting weapons and fighting enemies? It feels completely at odds with the rest of the game. And mechanically, melee and shooting just don't feel that great either. Combat is clunky overall, enemies don't react well, and encounters quickly become repetitive. That said though, there is one enemy type that does stand out. Now, I mentioned this before, but the Weeping Angel style stalkers are easily the best part of the game. Now, for those unaware or haven't watched Doctor Who, these creatures only move when you're not looking at them, and they're often placed in puzzle scenarios that force you to turn away. That creates this constant tension between progressing and staying safe, and the audio design here does a lot of the heavy lifting. You get this breathy, panic sound building behind you as the creature moves towards you, layered with rising music that ramps up the pressure. It's genuinely tense and actually quite scary the first few times these pop up. There's even a great puzzle involving piano keys where you have to play fast enough before they reach you. Moments like that are excellent, and they show exactly what the game could have been with a tighter vision. Now, presentation wise, it is a bit of a mixed bag. The environments are atmospheric, no doubt, and the forest in particular does a great job of selling isolation. But the draw distance is certainly noticeable, especially during slower exploration sections. Our lighting is strong though, especially at night, with some great use of colour to build tension. You're also given a torch, but this is another mechanic that feels a bit undercooked. There's no clear indicator for how much battery you have left, and once it runs out, to put the batteries back in you have to hold R3 and you simply watch a timer circle round, rather than physically seeing the batteries being entered into the torch. It feels like a strange oversight and a really weird mechanic. There's also a lot of repeated visual elements too. Now, mannequins in particular are certainly creepy the first few times you see them, but they're used so often during the night sequences that they start to lose their impact. Now, where the game really shines though is in its audio design, which I guess is no surprise for a game that centres on music. The ambient sound throughout the forest is excellent, and the vinyl player in Dakota's cabin is a really nice touch. Interacting with this and choosing the different tracks, Dakota chirps up with a few interesting snippets of information about each track. Enemy sound design is consistently strong too, especially for the stalkers. It's easily one of the most effective parts of the experience. And that's kind of the running theme with Songbird. There are some genuinely great ideas here, but they never quite go far enough. The musical puzzles are strong but underused, and given how much focus there is on recording sound, it feels like a missed opportunity not to tie that more directly into the horror. You keep expecting a game to push that mechanic further, but it never really does. Now as the game goes on, things start to lose momentum. It takes some bold swings with its story, no doubt, but they don't always land, and it ends up breaking immersion more than enhancing it. The pacing drags here too, and while the story does reach a decent enough conclusion, it also highlights a lot of the game's biggest issues. And that really sums up Project Songbird. It's a game full of good ideas, some of them are genuinely great, but they're inconsistent, and they're not always given the space to fully develop. It borrows a lot from other games, as I said, but it never quite feels confident enough to stand on its own. So overall, Project Songbird is an absorbing 6-hour experience, but it's also a frustrating one too. There are certainly flashes of brilliance, especially in its puzzle design and a few individual horror moments, but they're held back by clunky combat, uneven pacing, and ideas that never quite come together. There's definitely something here, but it never quite becomes a standout indie gem. It feels like it could have been. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.